Welcome to Souhan Unfiltered at SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. We appreciate you stopping by the podcast. We are live tonight at Kieran's Irish Pub right across from Target Center. Cheryl Reeve, the Lynx coach, is taking a very brave journey across the Skyway to get here. It's only like minus 125. It can't get much worse than this.
It really wasn't bad at all.
This is part of the Alive and Social Network. Sean Bernard and Scott O'Malley have set up a bunch of podcasts on our network. Mine, Jeff Dubé's, Rusty Gatenby's, about 15 others. We're adding every day. Again, tonight, live at Kieran's Irish Pub. Then Friday at O'Gara's at 5 o'clock. Then my band will play. Then we will lead into live karaoke, 9 o'clock. So my band will play like 7:30 to 8:45 on Friday at O'Gara's, leading to live karaoke. Then I'll be off to spring training, and I'll be doing a bunch of stuff from Fort Myers with Twins people, players and executives. Also on Saturday, we will tape with Michael Russo, Star Tribune hockey writer, at 4 o'clock on Saturday about the Wild's road trip and playoff aspirations. But let's get to Cheryl here. Cheryl, I appreciate you coming over. You know, I had this thought because my walk over here was partly outside, and I had just watched an episode of The Walking Dead recently, and I'm thinking, we would have no trouble with the zombie apocalypse because we'd wait till the winter and they'd be snowmen.
Absolutely.
And we'd knock them down and be over with.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I actually came outside as well. I walked across the street. I came out of the Hubert's entrance, walked by Sid Hartman there, and popped over.
I actually prefer the statue of Sid to Sid himself. I think he's much more charming.
Yeah, well, and I feel the same way. That's what I told him when I saw him at one of our Breakfast Club meetings.
Now, how does Sid treat you, by the way?
You know, it's kind of non-existent, to be honest with you. I get a kick out of it, sort of. You know, I was told long ago when I first got here that Sid is simply not a fan of women's sports. And, you know, obviously that doesn't really sit well with me. It's pretty antiquated, but then again, I guess consider, you know, the fact that Sid is antiquated. And, you know, we've come a long way. He is a Lindsay Whalen fan, I'm told. So we do have that going for us, and I'm told that he's been at a game or two, you know, to see Way, and but we don't really spend our time on people like that, to be honest with you.
I understand. Did you watch any of the NBA All-Star Weekend festivities that do it for you?
I did. You know, I've kind of hit or miss as far as the last few years whether I watched it. And, you know, I think it was a weather kind of thing. I was a little under the weather as well. So I was on my back and had the TV on and actually watched all of it. I watched the, you know, the skills contest where they include a WNBA player to shoot the little chippy shot. I was really, really thrilled that the team that moved the WNBA star to a location other than the chippy shot won the contest. I was thrilled about that. And I thought that was a statement. And I watched the three-point shooting contest. Obviously, I watched Zach do a great job in the dunk contest. And, you know, I watched the game a little bit here and there.
I know when Kevin McHale was here, well, I know from other people, Kevin never said it publicly. I always got the sense from third parties that Kevin wasn't very interested in women's basketball or the Lynx. How about these days, with Flip in charge, with Glenn running both organizations? Do you feel is there much interaction between the organizations now?
You know, there's interaction for sure. You know, we are one company. You know, we are the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx, and by and large, we have the support of, you know, for sure, Glenn. Anybody that is a Lynx fan knows that you see Glenn Taylor seated, you know, just a few seats away from our bench, and it's genuine. You know, and I have felt that since the first day I met Glenn on my interview, and really, really thankful to have his support. And so that, you know, with the owner saying this is important to me, then the others have no choice but to follow suit and execute the plan. And we've got some really good people in our organization that are, you know, not only advocates for the WNBA, but great fans of the Minnesota Lynx. And how can you not be with the group that we have? And so I feel fortunate. We've got the best franchise in the WNBA as far as the support that we get, and on a daily basis, our shared resources. You know, we're lucky.
You've had great success here, and what I really like to do with the podcast when I can is go back to the beginnings, because once people make it, we tend to think of them as these super achievers who are destined to make it, but there are always these twists and turns along the way that, and any one of them could have derailed you. Tell me, where did you grow up, first of all?
Well, I grew up actually in Omaha, Nebraska. I was an Air Force brat.
I was an Air Force brat.
Yeah, so I spent time over at the Offutt Air Force Base. You know, I was born in Omaha, lived there for 9 years. And then from there, Dad got orders to go to Warner Robins, Georgia, where we spent time about 3 years. And then, this was kind of I think for And I'm not sure exactly how long before we were scheduled to leave, but they changed the orders. And instead of going to Alaska, we were going to go to Japan. And Dad just immediately said, it's not happening. And my daughter worked really hard on being a point guard through all these years. And if we go to Japan, she'll become a center. And it just wasn't in the plan. So then we moved to Jersey, which was home. So my dad retired. And so I kind of, South Jersey is home. Philly area, where I went to college, is home.
It's funny. My grandmother lived in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, so it's pretty much across the bridge from Manhattan. And we spent a lot of holidays there, and I actually lived there for a brief time when I was younger. And being an Air Force brat, we moved all over the place, including Okinawa for a while. We lived there for about a year and a half. When I was very young, I can barely remember it. So you said your dad didn't want to move you because you're a point guard. How early did you start playing basketball?
Well, I got that question the other day, and I really started thinking about it. Because people think that because this is my profession, that it was my first love as a kid, kind of getting involved in sports, and it really wasn't. Because back in the day, obviously, opportunities for young girls weren't as plentiful. You certainly couldn't find an all-girls team to play for at a young age. If you were going to play as a young girl, even as it is today in many places, you got to play with the boys. And I actually started out playing, t-ball and softball. That was my thing, the traveling softball. And I was a big softball player all the way up until probably sophomore, junior in high school, where I really thought that I wanted to go to college and play softball and be in the Olympics and that sort of thing. And I had a high school coach that told me, you're probably more talented in softball, but it's basketball that's going to lead you to a scholarship. And, she had no idea that it would lead to, obviously, me, being able to have a profession in it. But she was on the money as far as the opportunities that were more available in basketball than what they were in softball as far as scholarships. And I didn't play probably my first game till I was in the 5th or 6th grade. And, I remember my 7th grade team. I remember, having, a Parks and Rec team. This orange shirt and my Chucks, like the orange Chucks, and my feet were big, and I was skinny, and but I really remember my first experience on my school team, my 7th grade team. Played for Coach Hall, and that was when I really kind of remembered, kind of feeling like I was passionate about it. I hated losing and that sort of thing. That's as far back as I remember.
It's interesting. I wasn't really going to go down this road, but you just sparked something. I've had Mike Grant on, the Eden Prairie athletic director and football coach, who's been incredibly successful. Talking to John Tower, the St. Thomas basketball coach, whose team's ranked second in the country. Had Corey Koski, the former Twin, on the other day. And all three of them ended up talking about youth sports and developing young athletes and expectations. And it was amazing how similar their views, all coming from three completely different arenas, how similar their views were. And what you're talking about there, so many times what I see, because I coached girls basketball, 3 of my daughters, and coached for a long time, and wasn't a very good coach, but I was fair. At least I was fair to the kids. But so many parents now think they have to specialize, think the kid has to play one sport through their entire life. They have to be in all the right camps when they're 4 years old. They have to wear the right shoes. And your experience, like so many of the people I've talked to in professional sports, is the opposite, which is if you're good enough and passionate enough, you'll find your way.
Absolutely. And I think that specialization actually started, I remember being a high school player. AAU apparently existed and was pretty big. I wasn't aware of it, and I was not an AAU kid. Matter of fact, we had actually a very prominent person in the Philadelphia area, Mike Flynn, that had AAU teams, and I never played for him, but I used to go work out with some other players and at a place called Gustine Lake years and years and years ago. And that was when I kind of started getting, my confidence that there were things outside of, from a talent, going against, players that were better, maybe that were playing year round. And I remember my dad being adamantly opposed to specialization. And, I think Mike was trying to get me to focus on just basketball. I was a 3-sport athlete. I was field hockey, basketball, softball. I hated field hockey. Actually, my senior year, I ended up playing tennis in the fall to avoid the field hockey thing. The sticks were too short. It is
an awkward sport.
It's very awkward.
Yeah, I've held one of those before.
So I think it started then with that push, but now, that's, how many years later, almost 30 years later, I think we got it wrong with that. I think that the burnout that goes with that you hear a lot of, but it's kind of the society we live in, kind of what we're after, and we have I think a lot of parents that are living vicariously through their kids and all that good stuff. You see it. If you have 3 kids and you were a coach. By the way, the best thing that happens to a man is they have daughters. How about to enlighten them to what's really out there. And so kudos to you for finding it important to coach your daughter's teams. And I'm not sure how they felt about it, but
I was pretty nice to him actually. Well, actually, I can't say I was nice to him because I had to be a little bit tougher on them than everybody else on the team. But I wasn't crazy about it. I just kind of used them as the example. And I was not a. I wasn't a basketball coach like anybody would call you a basketball coach. I was not a professional. I never pretended to be. But I always tell people the best thing that ever happened to me was that my kids were not gifted. So I wasn't on the A team. I wasn't fighting with parents who thought that I might be taking 5 minutes away from a kid and ruining their chances at a scholarship or $1 million contract. We had limited athletes, and we had a blast. And we won our fair share of games, but we weren't going to, we weren't after the championship of the universe. It was about, fair playing time and having a party afterward.
Yeah. And those were teams I stayed away from because I was the really competitive kid.
You wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, no.
You would have been on the A team.
And my dad was my coach, and my goodness, was he hard on me.
Was he?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Give me an example.
Very, very vivid, like it happened yesterday. Again, traveling softball team. I don't know how old I was, 10, 11. Pretty young, but very, it was very serious in our household. The sports were very serious with all 3 of us. I have an older brother, younger brother. We're at a tournament, and I'm playing third base. And it's a pretty big deal. I think if we win, kind of the big thing. And ball comes my way, and I error, and it goes through my legs, and I miss it, and we lose. And Dad kind of laid into me, and I remember, he was hard on me. I remember, I don't think he necessarily ever made me cry. It was kind of like, you get your scowl on your face, and I wanted to please him, and so we had that. I needed that, and actually kind of shaped who I am today as far as what I need around me. I don't need people to tell me that I'm good. I need people to tell me where I still have to go. I like that. I respond better to that. But I remember my mom, all the team with their families, kind of around their vehicles and that sort of thing. And my mom was furious with my dad because he probably yelled at me in front of everybody. He was that parent. And, I remember her saying, Cheryl, you don't have to play anymore. You can quit. You don't have to play anymore. And, maybe I was crying. Maybe that's why she felt that way. But that was the last thing I wanted to do was quit. I wanted to get back out there and get another shot at it, make sure I caught it the next time. So, but I was really, really fond of, just my brothers in the backyard, playing, what we call, it's run the bases now. What do we call it? Was it pickle? We used to play pickle.
We called it pickle.
Yeah, we played pickle. And, I was Chuck Foreman in my backyard, crazy enough. How about this? With my brothers, we do the football thing. We're in Omaha, Nebraska living. And I was a huge Vikings fan at that age. So whatever those years were. So I was born in '66. So you figure, those good years with Rand Tarkenton and Chuck Foreman. In 2011, during our championship run, guess who starts coming to our practices and shows up? Chuck Foreman.
That's awesome.
I was like a little kid. My players had no idea who the heck he was. For me, I'm going, this is Chuck Foreman. This is number 44. And this is who I was in my backyard. And it was really, really cool to see it come full circle.
That's awesome. You said something about surrounding yourself with people who will push you or second guess you. I find so often covering pro sports, the common failing among executives and sometimes coaches is they surround themselves with yes men or women and never glimpse the error of their ways and then end up in a terrible place a few years down the road because nobody ever told them, hey, you might not want to do that. Did you make a conscious decision to surround yourself with people like that, or did it just kind of happen and you say, this is pretty good?
I don't think it. When I go back and I look at my career and the coaches that I had the good fortune to play for, my high school coach was a driver as well. I'd say my earlier years, Coach Hall, my first coach, was a pushover. He was just kind of a guy. I don't think he knew what the hell he was doing. It was just, and the teams were bad. And
some of us are like that.
Yeah. I remember coming home being so angry we lost again. But as I got to high school, our teams were really good. We had 5 Division I athletes, but 3 Division I basketball players on our high school team. So I had a coach who was, she was a driver. And I really liked that. And I was hard on myself. There wasn't a coach that was going to be harder on me than what I was on myself. So I was one of those, beat yourself up, make a turnover and hang your head. But it was in a way, it didn't make me play worse. It actually, it drove me, to do better. And when I got to college, I had the same thing. I had the great fortune of the person that recruited me actually got fired before I got there. And the legendary Speedy Morris of Philadelphia, men's basketball, boys basketball, actually coached at LaSalle my first 2 years.
Wow.
And this guy's crazy. If you, an amazing basketball coach. If you actually go back and look, my mom was reminding me of this. Speedy was kind of known for his temper and throwing of jackets and, saying some really, really crazy things on the sideline.
Example?
I can't. I really could not.
It's a podcast. You can say whatever you want.
He was, the story that's still told on the recruiting trails in the women's game is actually my first game that I didn't play so well. We were on the road. I was a freshman. We were down at Delaware. And I had, at that point, some difficulty understanding how to attack the zone. Now, I can tell you now, all the things that I did were wrong. And I had 9 turnovers in the game, 9. And the problem about the 9 is they weren't different. They were all kind of like the same turnover. So I dribble I'm a point guard, so I came to the top of the zone. And the zone wouldn't guard me because I knew I wasn't going to shoot. So they were playing my passing lanes. And it was like, here, okay, it's your turn, and I'd throw it to that one, and I'd throw it to that one, and on the last one, we're trying to win the game. We were still in the game despite my 9 turnovers, and I remember the last one, and I was the type, turn it over, I'm going to sprint back, and I'm going to make something happen. I'm going to break up this play. I'm going to get it back. And I had done it for the other 8 turnovers. I'm still fighting, and we're still playing. And on the 9th turnover, I remember sprinting back, getting across half court, turning, and getting ready to get down in the stance, and Speedy is on the sideline. His hair's all over the place, hands flying. He's like, "You effing suck!" and just loses his mind on me, right? I remember stopping playing. The kid goes by me, scores a layup. I get subbed out. I go to the bench. I'm now crying. And I actually had a friend recently go, "You cried?" I was crying. I was like, 9 turnovers, and the coach tells me I effing suck. I'm crying, right? So the guy that becomes our coach after 2 years was a great friend of Speedy Morris, is John Miller. So he's the one that tells the story. He's sitting behind the bench as a friend, and Speedy comes, and I'm sitting on the bench, and he comes down to me, and he goes, "You're crying. You're crying. I should be crying." So those are very, very fond memories, if you will, in the story. That's a story that is still told today.
And what's the closest you've ever gotten to saying that to one of your players?
Maybe not quite exactly that way. It's come to mind. Probably not that. It's probably more like when a player says they have their head hurts, or no, your head hurts, my head hurts, but yeah, it's Speedy's classic. Speedy, I guarantee you, of all the players that play for him, you just line them up, you would have amazing stories, because he was comical. He's a guy that coached at Roman Catholic High School. Was up on the gym was up on the 3rd or 4th floor, whatever it was. Threw his jacket out the window and it landed in the trash can, out in the alley, kind of thing. He was that guy. So we loved him.
As someone who went to a Catholic high school, let me tell you, nobody can cuss like the Catholics.
Right.
They are experts. They study the craft.
Right.
Now you can be a little demonstrative on the sideline. Is that calculated, or is that just raw emotion?
One of the things that's, after usually an incident that maybe is described post-game, either in the papers or whatever, I get such a kick out of people that write that Coach Reeve timed her technical, or Coach Reeve. I am not that smart, and none of us are. Don't give any of us that kind of credit. It's really more. It really is raw emotion. Sometimes it works out that it changes where maybe I was supporting a player, that a player gets fired up, because they know the coach has got my back, and it gets them angry what just happened, and then all of a sudden they play better, and they kind of correlate that well, Coach Reeve knew that was going to happen. You have no earthly idea. Now I get a technical, and Simone's looking at me like, Coach, what are you doing? So no, coaches, I don't do that. I mean, I think I've heard of times where coaches say they were trying to get a T. Have I done that where I've tried to get a T? Absolutely. But it wasn't necessarily to fire my team up.
Right. So you're taking us up to LaSalle. How did you go from being a college basketball player to being a professional coach?
Well, I was somebody that wasn't necessarily thinking about coaching. Certainly not as a profession. Not back in the 80s, that's for sure. It was probably when I was a junior in college that I did an internship. I was a computer science major. I was a dual major, computer science and management information systems. That was kind of big then. It was kind of hot. I was sure I was going to have a job when I graduated, and that was the big thing my dad wanted. And matter of fact, he chose my major. When the coaches came for the home visit, I was around for basketball talk, and then went in the kitchen when they started talking academics, and my dad talked about, yep, you have computer science? Okay, good, that's what she's going to do. My junior year, I did an internship for the IRS in computers, so I was configuring systems. That's kind of what I was working on, and I absolutely hated it. And it's not because it was the IRS, it was just the idea of the kind of the 8 to 5, and you'd take a 15-minute break here and a lunch here, and I thought, yeah, God, that's the real world, huh? And then also that summer, this was something I had done a little bit, but I had a 5-week stint. I worked for the Kathy Rush basketball camps. I was a counselor, and in that 5 weeks, each week I made $125, and we were there from Sunday afternoon to Friday and worked our tails off daily. But absolutely loved it because there were a number of other players there as well, and we would have great pickup games. And that was kind of like what you did to improve your game in the summer. And so I did that, and didn't know what I was doing, but I was basically doing an internship in coaching during that time. And when I got to the end of that, and I'm a junior getting ready to be a senior, and you start thinking about life after, and I was like, I kind of like that. Then you start talking to people, and then there's these postgraduate scholarships. You can be a graduate assistant, and one thing led to the other, and I got a postgraduate scholarship from the NCAA. Had a wonderful college coach, John Miller, that took over for Speedy, that thought it was important to keep his players in. And I was the graduate assistant for the next 2 years after I graduated, and got a great job out of that. Was a full-time coach down at George Washington University, and blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, here I am.
When was the first time you thought, maybe I'll be a professional a coach in a professional league someday? Not until, honestly, probably when the WNBA came in 1997. I know exactly where I was. We had the ABL and the WNBA. I was in St. Croix on vacation watching the first WNBA game. And I remember just being so excited and kind of loving it. And I was college coaching. I was at Indiana State. Just kind of being dragged through the mud. It was a hard place. It was hard to recruit. It was hard to win. And I would imagine, I've been to Terre Haute, and I would imagine what's even harder than recruiting is keeping them there once they've been there. Yeah, it wasn't as hard. It obviously gets a bad rap. It's called Terrible Haute, to many people. And but we were there at a time when I had a president that was from New Jersey. They were building new buildings and kind of shedding some of the bad rap that was in Terre Haute. But we did okay. We did okay. But it was just it was kind of like beat your head against the wall. It was going to be cyclical. You were going to be good every once in a while. And during that time, I was a season ticket holder for the Indiana Fever. I believe it was in 2000. 99 or 2000 was their first year. I can't recall. And I was a season ticket holder, and I just loved going to the games. And
kind of had this weird thing. We used to have a pre-draft camp, and we had it in Chicago, and I thought, I'm going to go, and I'm going to kind of, see if maybe I can maybe latch on somewhere, and learned that the Charlotte Sting had an opening. And the opening was for, hey, geez, I already hired my assistant, but I got a little bit of money if you're interested. And it was $5,000 that I was offered to coach for my first professional job, the WNBA. And I took it. And I always tell people, if Ann only knew I'd have done it for nothing. I would have just, it was almost nothing, but got an apartment and $5,000, but I didn't care. I just wanted to coach. And once my first day on the job all the way, it's just been amazing. I just tell people I am so fortunate because we'd all love to have a job that it's not lip service, that you love and you're passionate about it. I get to live this every day, and I don't have any bad days. Even on those tough days where maybe things don't go your way, I get home and go, are you kidding me? I'm coaching professional women's basketball, and I love it.
That's awesome. Why don't you take a breath, and I'll read this, do this little bit of business for Kieran's, get a drink of water, whatever you need. We are at Kieran's Irish Pub. This is SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. You can find all the podcasts there. Upcoming schedule of event at Kieran's. February 20th, the Sweet Colleen's, an Irish rock group. February 21st, the Teddy Holidays, 50s, 60s, 70s cover band. Also, Pitbull and Enrique Iglesias are at Target Center that night. February 27th and 28th is the St. Dominic's Trio cover band playing here both those nights. March 1st, Six Nations Rugby, Ireland versus England at 9 a.m., called the Match of the Century. That's all at Kieran's Irish Pub. Let me ask you about your players. Now, I know Lindsay better than any of them, but I have coverage enough to get a feeling for some other players. First of all, just Lindsay Whalen, everybody knows about her, but tell me about your relationship with her, what it's like to coach her on a daily basis.
It's special. And that's probably the most obvious answer. People can see that Lindsay herself is special, and Lindsay makes it so much fun because the down-to-earth nature, the very passionate about her teammates, wants to be coached. She's an incredible individual. Starting with who she is as a person, and then the talent that she possesses, the kind of the fierce desire that she has. It's just so much fun to be around, and interactions during the game, interactions during practice, even now in the off season when she's away from us across the waters. She's a player that likes to stay in touch, and she's just special. There's just not. I've been doing this for a long time. There's just not a lot like her. She is such a junkie, a sports junkie. Loves the transaction side of it. Loves what the Twins are doing, or what the Wild are doing, Vikings and the Timberwolves. Like, she's just really, really into it. And I wouldn't be surprised if she was listening to this podcast right now. Right. She's just so connected,
yes,
to the Minnesota sports scene, and just really, really passionate about it. And her knowledge. She's really good for me. I think we kind of challenge each other in ways that, like even in game, she knows kind of. It's kind of like Lindsay. What happens here stays here. Like in terms of what sometimes I might have a moment where I need to vent.
Mm-hmm.
What blah 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 so and so blah blah blah. What, and Way will go. Okay, coach, what play do you want to run next? So she's really good that way about redirecting. And then Way can do the same thing to me. She can come over and go, what the, what's going on? Da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't know, Way. Let's run. Let's run two in. And we're really good that way. Or just to come over and have a good time. She's somebody that when it's all said and done will have no regrets about how she went about her business, and we'll have many, many great stories. Many great memories with teammates because she was so genuine, and everybody loves her, and she's a motivator. She's witty. People don't realize. Everybody sees that kind of look, and they think that's how she is all the time. And Way is my personality. Way is the in the locker room. It's just when you don't expect it, she just comes out with some stuff, and she also has a unique way of motivating her teammates, and that they want to do great things for.
Yeah, I covered her a little bit when she was at the University of Minnesota, but that wasn't really my primary job at the time. I was covering mostly football and baseball at that time. But so I was around her a little bit. I took my daughters to go see her play at Williams Arena, and then I covered her, through her career, and she came back here, and I've gotten to know her a lot better over the last 4 or 5 years, and there are a lot of layers to the personality that she really doesn't display the first couple times you're around her.
Exactly. Yeah, Lindsay, and it's understandable that, you guys, meaning the media, it's hard to let your guard down, because you kind of fear, maybe you have that moment where you thought something was between the two of you type thing, and then you get burned. But I think Lindsay's smart that way. But Lindsay does let her guard down, around her, around her teammates, and a lot of times around the fans, and she's just a good one.
Jim Peterson always tells me about the Lindsay Whalen face. How often do you see that face?
We see it all the time, and it's hilarious. We see it in practice. It's kind of the joke. We get a group of practice guys that are very, very committed to us. We're very lucky. They're very talented, and they compete really hard with our group. And sometimes our players get knocked around, and whenever something happens to Lindsay, and she takes exception to it, it's the look comes out, and it's the gym gets quiet, and we're all trying not to laugh, But it's pretty comical, and it's her. It's a patented thing for her.
Another Minnesota sports figure who's pretty beloved is Jim Peterson, and you have him as assistant coach. He spends obviously the NBA season as an analyst. What's that dynamic like between you and Jim? Because he was an accomplished player. He analyzes the NBA, and now all of a sudden he's your assistant. What's the relationship there like?
I think it'd be really cool to kind of hear Jim's perspective on it, but I really don't think about those other things. I don't ever think about that he played in the NBA or that he's an analyst in the NBA. I really think about what he brings to the table for us, and some of it has to do with his NBA days. I really, really draw heavily from his seeing a ton of basketball in the offseason, in that I love the NBA. I love the offensive schemes in the NBA, and I draw on him to say, we're 5 years into this thing now, that he knows me really well. He knows what to bring to me and what not to bring to me. And the same thing with Shelly, Shelly too, but Jim will say, okay, I saw that, you'll like that for, this action, that action, because I don't necessarily like reinventing the wheel. I like expanding what we have, and so, Jim's kind of learned that through the years, and brings a lot to the table that way. Personality standpoint, he's a player. He was a pro player. And so he brings that perspective, that, maybe there'll be times that, we'll think something's a good idea, and he'll go, I know if that was me when I was playing, I don't know if I'd have liked that, and so that's valuable to have, have that too. Or he'll say, man, I would have appreciated that as a player, so it's really good perspective to have. And his connections here in the community, Jim's a staple. You don't go very many places where somebody doesn't know Jim Pete. Right. Even when I'm not with Jim Pete, I've got flight attendants, that went to high school with Jim, and so that part is really cool. It's helped me to be more connected to the community as well.
Right. What's it like coaching Maya Moore?
Coaching Maya Moore. Maya, what I love about Maya is it just feels so strange that she's kind of beyond her years in her approach. Young when we first got her, that rookie, that has so much to learn about our league. How fast she kind of mastered what she needed to do to be successful in this league. Her rookie year was average by standards if you look at where she's at now. And she knew it. We knew that when we got Maya that we weren't going to win a championship in 2011 because of Maya. We were really good prior to Maya's arrival. Maya gave us that next level of player that was going to evolve into an MVP caliber, which she did just a couple seasons later. Maya was a supporting piece in our 2011 championship, but a really, really important piece in that a superstar with great humility. And our players, it was kind of funny. Our players welcomed Maya's attention that came with her. The ESPN, everybody wanted to talk to Maya. She was kind of like Mikey. Remember the cereal commercials with Mikey? He'll eat it. He'll eat anything. Maya was Mikey for us early because Lindsay and Simone and Taj, the veterans were kind of like, you go talk to the media. We're going to go over here and work on our game. You go, and so Maya would kind of go take on those roles that the veterans were happy to share. And then from a game perspective, Maya, the greatest thing about Maya is Maya appears not to see or hear anything that is happening. And that is a beautiful thing. And I don't know where that comes from. Maya has this internal mechanism that she's so driven about her performance, the way that she wants to perform, the way that she visualizes it, and it's a great visualization. It's a very elite level. In the course of competing, Maya makes a lot of mistakes, and if you ever notice with Maya Moore, you can never tell if it was her that made the mistake. Now, I'd have some along the way. I've had some reporters say to me, "Why do you yell at Maya so much?" And my simple answer was because she does so much wrong, and it's like she's so terrific, but yet But if you watch Maya, you don't know it, and that's a wonderful thing. Whereas I have other players that everybody in the building knows that they just messed up, and I was that player that everybody in the building knew that was me, that I turned it over and I was mad at myself, and I kind of sucked the life out of everything. And so what Maya has is this beautiful trait of she believes no matter what happens, the next thing that she does is going to be great. And that's what makes her really, really special. And it's really fun to have an MVP in this market, for this league, and she's a great teammate.
It's really fun applying the nature versus nurture argument to sports. What do you see with Maya? How much of what she's accomplished is because of just who she is, and how much has been coaching, development, and outside influences?
I think Maya could answer that better, but from my observation, I would say that all great players have what I guess the people would call the it factor. The kind of the elite Olympians are elite. They have something just a little bit special, more special. And for me, that's the internal. That's the mental drive, the mental focus. No question, Maya's got the physical attributes. He's got great size, got great athleticism. But you don't get, there's a number of players that have size, athleticism, and skill, but they're just average. Maya just has this drive. That's a lot like obviously the Jordan brand is behind Maya. It's actually really fitting because I think Maya, if you look at Maya, she wins a championship, whether it's in college and then in the WNBA or in China, and it's like, great, put that in the collection. I want another one. She never stops wanting to be the best, and she'll always be that way. And that's not something that comes along very often.
She's already won a championship. She's already a bunch of championships through the levels, but one in the WNBA. She's already won the MVP. And yet, I'm interested in your perspective on her because I've always had that feeling about her. Okay, yeah, she's a tremendous athlete. She's a tremendous player, tremendous leader. She's very successful. And yet I watch her and I think, she could be a little bit better at this and a little bit better at that. And I don't mean it in a nitpicking way. I mean just sheer evaluation. So how much better can she get?
Well, that's the really cool thing. I'm with you. Yeah. And Maya will tell you, there are things that, she continues to strive to get better at. She'll never feel complete because, frankly, there is always something because you always have somebody chasing you, taking this away, taking that away. And that's what I was really proud about with Maya's in college, playing for Gino. One of the things that Gino always talked about was, Maya was just in love with the three and just didn't get to the rim very often and score around the basket. Maya, for us, we've got an offensive system that puts Maya in cutting roles at the basket, gets her in post-up roles and attacks mismatches as well as shoot the three. Maya is so versatile. Take away one thing, she'll hit you with something else. That being said, she still has things that an opponent scouts and looks at and says, okay, If I can get Maya Moore doing this, I've got a better chance. It may not work out, but I got a better chance than if I let her do her money thing. And so she continues to work on those things. So I agree with you. There's really for all of our players, I could go through a list of the greatest of our players, the things that they need to get better at. The thing with Maya is Maya already has it on her list. You know, she's not somebody that would be hearing it for the first time. She'll be like, oh, yeah, I know, I was working on that.
And how does it feel to coach in a professional league where your goal is to win championships and to have your players leave in the offseason and even make more money overseas? Is that a weird dynamic?
I guess it's not, because that's the only thing I've known. Been in the league since 2001, and it's been a part of women's basketball even prior to the WNBA, in that the European opportunities, or the opportunities in Japan way back with Ann Donovan played, and the overseas thing has always been a big part. And so I think with our league now, it's a challenge for sure for us to balance, and by us I mean our players, to balance all that's asked of them in a way that creates a very year-round playing. The people that compare it to the NBA go, yeah, but the NBA still plays more games. But it's not about that. It's the time commitment. Mm-hmm. The NBA is going to be off at least a couple months. Yep. And our players would just die for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And they don't get that. They get, literally, it's if they get a good year, would be like a year like this year where there's no World Championship and there's no Olympic. And they're going to get, some of them, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it's like golden to them. They don't get much family time. The ones that are fortunate, like a Lindsay Whalen, to play in her hometown, if you will, to be near her family, and then have to go overseas, it's a little bit easier to manage, but it's a lot. And I give our players a lot of credit. And, the balance of understanding, yes, it's hard, but it's a choice to go make a little more money overseas, to supplement your WNBA salary. But it's really, really important what you're doing here in our country for women's professional sports. We're the longest-running pro league, and they understand that they want this and they need this, and they've got to nurture the game and keep growing it. So they've got so much responsibility, And, oh, by the way, I'm trying to make a living. Mm-hmm. And I only have, say 14, 15 years to do this. And I think by and large we've got a group of players in our league that embrace it all, embrace being accessible to our fans, and being great role models to both boys and girls. I've seen in just my time, I think, what am I, 14 years, and I don't know how many years I'm into, a while. We went from being a league that had very strong fan base, very passionate, sometimes limited fan bases that had a lot of little young girls, to now we see boys wearing, and not just young boys, grown men wearing Simone Augustus jerseys, Maya Moore, Lindsay Whalen jerseys. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's really, really progressed. And so what I see that as is like that's the cultivation of that seed that was planted, and that the sport is growing. But it's like we're making the world a better place. Now men aren't going, I'm not going to a WNBA game. They're going, I got my Moan jersey on. I'm going, I can't wait to get there and cheer for them. And those are the same people that are going to be sitting in offices and making decisions on supporting and sponsorships and that sort of thing. So we've done a lot in that time frame to get more of a landscape that it's expected that women play pro sports. And it's been really, really important. I feel when I'm old and gray, which I'm old and a little bit gray, but when I'm really old and really gray, when I look back on this, it's just going to be something I'm going to be so thankful to have been a part of, because I just think it's going to become so big and so important to society.
What did you think of Becky Hammonds becoming an NBA assistant, and do you have any aspirations to coach men? Is it important to you at all?
I loved it. I thought it was a perfect, as great lead in the evolution that I'm talking about with our game. Enlightened men are kind of where it's at for women in general. I don't care what profession it is. When we are given an opportunity, when we are treated as equals, the way that my father treated me with my brothers was the expectation was exactly the same. I was to cut the grass. I was to take my turn to do that. He was going to make sure that I worked just as hard. He didn't treat me differently because he was afraid to yell at me. That same thing kind of translates to just life in general now, in business, and there aren't enlightened men everywhere in every business. There's very male-dominated professions that simply aren't ready to share, if you will. And for me to see a organization like the San Antonio Spurs, a person of such great character like a Greg Popovich, say, I'm doing this, and I'm not doing this because it's a gimmick.
Right.
I'm doing this because I think she's really good and really respectful of the women's game. Not there's a knock on her because she's a woman. There's a knock on her because she played in the WNBA. What does she know? And I've heard a ton through my time in sports. Bill Laimbeer is a person who was denied opportunities in the NBA because he was a WNBA coach. What does he know? And it was frowned upon. And so I think a really, really important step, again, when I say it speaks to society at large, to get opportunities like these. I know that Becky will make the most of it. And, as far as aspirations, I think I'll say for all women, do we aspire to coach men? I don't necessarily know that that's an aspiration. Do we aspire to be treated the same? Do we aspire to have the opportunity to earn the same? For sure. The reality is that that's not the case. NBA has been around a lot longer than the WNBA. One of my favorite things that I in this offseason that I came upon was there was an anniversary of Ted Williams signing a contract. Ted Williams, a baseball player that's not alive anymore.
Correct.
He signed a contract, I believe, for $100,000, and it was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So it was like an anniversary date. And it just kind of hit me and it reminded me that we really are in the infancy stages of our league. And whether it's Major League Baseball for Ted Williams, there was an evolution. Whether it's the NBA, that Bill Laimbeer in the 80s, those guys they didn't make what they're making today.
No.
And so that we kind of got to be patient and push, and want to grow. But for me, growing the women's game and continuing to be a pioneer and champion our great game and cultivate the growth of it is really important to me. Now, that being said, if Glenn Taylor were to say to me, Cheryl, I really think that we'd like to give you an opportunity to coach the Timberwolves, I would say, where do I sign? That would be something that I would look at, much like Becky did, is opening a door. I'm not a sellout on the women's game. I'm opening a door, hopefully, to continue to move things as a woman forward. And I'm not, I think all of us would say, well, if I had a chance to make a couple million in a season versus, a couple 100,000, I'd be foolish not to listen.
Absolutely. And, I've told Flip this, too. He's got a lot of jobs. He could give one of them up really easily.
Yeah.
He's like part owner, GM, president, and coach. I mean, he only needs 3 of those things.
Yeah, it keeps him busy. Probably keeps him out of trouble a little bit. So.
I think so. All right, we're coming to a close, but I'm actually going to probably hold you a little longer than normal because I haven't gotten to my I like to ask my guests some unusual questions, kind of get out of the sports mode here.
Okay.
So give me your favorite TV show.
Favorite TV show right now? Well, there's so many.
I know.
So many good ones on right now. Probably Scandal would be the one that I kind of go. I look forward to watching it. The one that I'm really bad at falling asleep if it's an hour show. So if I get through a show, that means it was a really good show. And the show that did that for me for probably 2 years was Jack Bauer's 24.
Yeah.
Back in the beginning. That was a show I was awake and I wanted more, and so Scandal is probably the closest thing to that now.
How about movie? You have a favorite movie, either now or all time?
Wow. Favorite movie? I like a lot of different ones. I mean, I could go back. I go back to the Airplane days. I go back to the movie Copycat, Sigourney Weaver, Hotel Rwanda, Pretty Woman.
That's a diverse list right there.
Yeah.
It really is. That's pretty good.
And I'm not a movie buff. People know that they follow me on K-Fan. I'm really bad at some of the movie stuff that they do. I'm not a pop culture person by any stretch. And again, same thing. Without fail, if you see me in a movie theater, right about that halfway point is when I just doze just a little bit, like I'm just resting to get ready for the end.
Well, people of our generation, sometimes we have to rest our eyes.
We do.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
My father used to tell me that, and I always knew he was just going to go to sleep.
Well, my dad used to tell me, checking for holes in my eyelids is what I was doing. So.
Exactly. Give me a musical preference, whether it's band, song, album, anything.
I was of the generation of the Fleetwood Mac. I was Fleetwood Mac, Rod Stewart, Tina Turner back in the day. Now I'm really a huge Adam Levine, Maroon 5 fan. Adele, Beyonce. Same thing though. If I remember to turn on the radio, kind of thing, and I can tell you, I'm terrible at the name of the song. I'm terrible at the words to the song. I just go into the locker room sometimes to kind of like catch up on what's really hip. Yeah. So, but I'm terrible with those things too.
I've gotten great answers to this question from a lot of different people, and I've answered this question a million times in my own life. And finish the sentence, I was wrong about.
I was wrong about. Wow. There's so many directions I could go with this.
There are for all of us.
Right. Well, what comes to mind is because I'm here in Minnesota. What I was wrong about was that I said I would never live in Minnesota. I scouted here. I was a college recruiter years ago. Came to Minnesota in March without a jacket and walked across campus. I think must have had it in 2 locations. And I walked and I said, "My God, it's the coldest place I've ever been. I will never live there." And here I am.
I was kind of wrong about that one, too. Final thought. First of all, thank you for joining me today. This is a lot of fun, Cheryl. I appreciate it. Prospects for next year. Is that a championship team?
Well, first things first, it's an odd year. Our fans have conditioned me into knowing that odd years are really good years for us. But outside of the fact that it's an odd year, I still believe that we have, on paper, the best team in the league when healthy. And that hasn't changed. And we're coming off a season where Maya Moore was MVP, but we didn't win a championship. And that usually means that I've got a quality training camp ahead of us and, exciting times.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That's Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve. I'm Jim Souhan. This is SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. Listen at iHeartRadio, through iTunes, or at the website SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. Next show's Friday night from O'Gara's, Saturday from the studio with Michael Russo, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Can't disguise the living, all the miles that you've been through.